I want you to imagine two people. Person A wakes up every morning, checks the stock market before they even brush their teeth. They read financial news obsessively. They move money around constantly, buying this, selling that, always chasing the next big thing. They spend probably 10 hours a week actively managing their investments. Person B set up one automatic transfer 5 years ago. Hasn't touched it since. Doesn't watch the news. Doesn't stress about market crashes. Doesn't even think about it most days. Now here's the question. Who do you think has more money today? If you said person A, the one who works hardest, pays the most attention, and tries the most, you'd be wrong. And not just slightly wrong. According to S&P's Spiva report, over a 15-year period, more than 92% of actively managed funds, run by professionals who do this for a living, underperform the market. Let that sink in. The people doing the most work, with the most expertise, with access to information you and I will never see, losing to people who essentially did nothing. And today, I'm going to show you exactly why, and more importantly, how you can use this to your advantage. My name is Neo, and I spend way too much time thinking about why doing less with your money almost always leads to more. If you're someone who feels overwhelmed by investing, convinced you need to be some kind of financial genius to build real wealth, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out, because today we're going to walk through the easiest, most boring, most counterintuitive way to get rich. And I genuinely think by the end of this, you'll never look at your money the same way again. Let's get into it. Here's the thing. From the moment we start earning money, we're fed a story. The story goes like this. Wealth rewards effort. Work harder, hustle more, be smarter, watch more closely, do more, and look. In almost every other area of life, that's true. At your job, effort matters. In fitness, consistency matters. In relationships, showing up matters. But investing is one of the only areas in life where trying harder actively makes things worse. And I don't mean that as a motivational line. I mean it mathematically. Dalbar, a financial research firm, conducts an annual study called the Quantitative Analysis of Investor Behavior. What they found will genuinely frustrate you. Over a 30-year period through 2023, the S&P 500, which is just the 500 biggest companies in America, returned an average of about 10.15% per year. The average individual investor over that same period? 5.5%. Same market, same time period, half the return. Why? Because individual investors did things. They reacted to headlines. They sold when markets dropped. They bought when markets were exciting. They timed. They switched. They worried. They acted. And every single one of those decisions, made with the best of intentions, cost them money. The investors who did nothing, the boring ones who automated a contribution and forgot about it, they got the full 10%. Here's what most people don't realize. The enemy of your wealth isn't ignorance. It's action. Unnecessary, emotional, reactive action. And the cure is almost embarrassingly simple. Let me show you what lazy investing actually produces in real dollar amounts, because this is where it gets really interesting. Let's say you're 25 years old. You set up a single automatic investment of $300 a month into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. You don't pick stocks. You don't watch charts. You don't rebalance obsessively. You don't even log into the account very often. You just let it run. At a historical average annual return of roughly 10%, compounded monthly, here's what happens. After 5 years, you've contributed $18,000 of your own money. Your account balance? Around $23,231. That's $5,231 of growth. Money you didn't earn, didn't work for, didn't stress over. Now keep going. After 10 years, you've put in $36,000. Your balance? Around $62,172. That's $26,172 appearing from thin air. Nearly 3/4 of a year of contributions, generated without a single decision. After 20 years, you've contributed $72,000. Your balance? Approximately $229,613, over $157,000 in pure growth. After 30 years, $108,000 contributed. Your balance? Roughly $678,000. More than $570,000 in growth. You put in $108,000 over your lifetime. The market handed you back $570,000 as a thank you for doing nothing. And if you stretch it to 40 years, that $300 a month becomes approximately $1.9 million from $300 a month. With zero active management, zero stock picking, zero market timing, zero stress. This, right here, is the lazy path to generational wealth, and almost nobody takes it because it sounds too simple to actually work. Now you might be thinking, Neo, if it's this simple, why isn't everyone rich? Great question, and the answer isn't math. The answer is psychology. Here's the thing about the human brain. It was not designed for investing. We evolved to respond to threats immediately. We evolved to take action when things feel dangerous. We evolved to trust doing something over doing nothing, because for most of human history, doing nothing when something went wrong was how you died. But the stock market punishes this instinct every single time. When markets drop 20%, which happens, by the way, on average about once every 3 to 5 years, your brain screams danger. Get out, protect yourself, do something. And here's what most people don't realize. That instinct, that completely natural human response, is precisely what makes you poor. Because here's what actually happens when markets drop. In March 2020, at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, the S&P 500 fell about 34% in 33 days. Millions of people panicked and sold. By August 2020, just 5 months later, the market had fully recovered. By the end of 2020, it was up over 16% for the year. The people who panicked and sold, they locked in their losses permanently. They also missed the recovery. They paid double, once going down, once going back up. The people who did nothing, they didn't even notice because they weren't watching. This is why the lazy investor wins. Not because they're smarter, not because they know something others don't, but because they're simply not in the room when their own brain tries to make a terrible financial decision. Look, before we get into the exact system, I want to name 3 specific behaviors that are actively costing people money, and chances are at least one of these sounds familiar. Number 1, checking your portfolio too often. This one sounds harmless. What's the damage of just looking? Right, a lot, actually. Research from Shlomo Benartzi and Richard Thaler, both respected behavioral economists, found that investors who check their portfolios more frequently take on significantly less risk and earn significantly lower returns over time. Why? Because the more often you look, the more losses you see, even in a growing portfolio. Markets fluctuate daily. On any given day, you're almost as likely to see a loss as a gain. The more you see those losses, the more anxious you become. The more anxious you become, the more you interfere. The fix? Check your investments quarterly at most. Seriously, set a calendar reminder and don't look in between. Number 2, paying high fees without realizing it. This is the silent killer that nobody talks about enough. Here's what most people don't realize. A 1% annual management fee sounds completely harmless. 1%. What's the big deal? Let me show you the big deal. Go back to our $300 a month investor over 30 years. With no fees, they end up with roughly $678,000. Now, subtract a 1% annual management fee, which is actually quite common in actively managed funds. After 30 years, they end up with around $491,000. That 1% fee cost them $187,000 on contributions of only $108,000. A fee that sounded small destroyed more money than they ever put in. Low-cost index funds from providers like Vanguard or Fidelity often charge expense ratios of 0.03% to 0.10%. That's the difference between a financial advisor in a nice suit taking $187,000 of your retirement fund and paying practically nothing to let the market do its job. Number 3, waiting for the right time. This is the biggest one, and it's where most people lose years, sometimes decades, of compounding. There's always a reason to wait. Markets are high. I'll wait for a dip. Markets crashed. I'll wait until things stabilize. There's an election coming. There's geopolitical tension, inflation is up, rates are changing. Look, in 2023, a study by Charles Schwab compared 5 different investors. One invested a lump sum immediately every year. One waited until the perfect low point every year. One split contributions evenly throughout the year. One kept everything in cash, too scared to invest. The results over 20 years. The perfect market timer, who somehow always bought at the lowest point of every single year, outperformed the immediate investor by less than $15,000 over 2 decades. The person who just invested immediately every time without thinking beat the cash hoarder by over $148,000. Waiting for perfect costs you more than acting imperfectly ever could. All right, let's get practical. Here is the complete, embarrassingly simple system. Step 1. Build a 1-month emergency fund first. I know, this part isn't exciting, but it is non-negotiable. Here's why this matters specifically for investing. If you start investing without a financial cushion and an unexpected expense hits, a medical bill, a car repair, a job loss, you may be forced to sell investments at exactly the wrong moment. Not because markets are bad, but because life happened. Start with 1 month of essential expenses saved in a high-yield savings account. Then grow it to 3 months, eventually 6. That cushion is what makes your investment account untouchable, and an untouchable investment account is what compounds without interruption. Step 2. Open a tax-advantaged investment account. In the U.S., that's a Roth IRA if you're eligible, or a 401k if your employer offers one, especially if they match contributions. Employer matching is, and I cannot stress this enough, the single greatest guaranteed return available to any human being on Earth. If your employer matches 50 cents for every dollar up to 6% of your salary, and you earn $60,000 a year, that's $1,800 of free money added to your account annually. That's a guaranteed 50% return on $3,600 before the market does a single thing. If you're not contributing enough to capture your full employer match, you're turning down free money every single month. Step 3. Set up one automatic monthly contribution. Pick a number, any number. It doesn't have to be $300. It could be $50. It could be $500. The amount matters less than the automation. Set the transfer to happen the same day your paycheck lands. Before you can see it, before you can spend it, before your brain can decide it needs something else. This is what behavioral economists call pre-commitment, and it is the single most effective financial behavior change you can make. In fact, research from Vanguard shows that investors who automate contributions save roughly 60% more per year than those who contribute manually. Same income, same intentions. 3 words, just automate it. Step 4. Invest in a single low-cost index fund and stop. Not 10 different ETFs. Not individual stocks, not crypto alongside it, just in case. 1. Simple. Index fund. Something like the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, VOO, or the Fidelity Zero Total Market Index Fund. These funds spread your money across hundreds or thousands of companies automatically. They charge almost nothing. They require no active decision-making. And historically, they outperform the vast majority of smarter alternatives. Set it, leave it. Come back in 30 years. That is the whole strategy. Now, let me be straight with you about something, because I think a lot of financial content glosses over this. This system is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. The hardest part isn't setting it up. The hardest part is leaving it alone when everything around you is telling you to do something. When markets drop 30% and the news is screaming. When your coworker tells you about a stock that doubled last week. When you log in after 6 months and your balance is lower than when you started. Those moments are real, and they will happen. And in those moments, the lazy investor's greatest advantage is also their greatest challenge, the discipline to not react. Here's the thing. Every market downturn in history has eventually recovered. Every single one. The 1929 crash, the dot-com bubble, the 2008 financial crisis, COVID-19. Recovery has followed every single time. The investors who came out ahead weren't the ones who predicted the recovery. They were the ones who were too lazy to panic. The goal of this system isn't to make investing exciting. It's to make it boring. Because boring, in investing, is the most profitable adjective that exists. Let me bring it all together. The easiest and laziest way to get rich is not a secret. It's not a trick. It's not a shortcut. It is this: build your emergency fund, open a tax-advantaged account, automate one monthly contribution into a low-cost index fund, and then do almost nothing for a very long time. That's it. The person who beats 92% of professional fund managers isn't smarter than them, isn't richer than them, isn't working harder than them. They just stop touching things. They trust the math. They tune out the noise. They resist every instinct to react, to optimize, to interfere, and the math rewards them for it every single month, quietly and without announcement, while they're doing literally anything else with their life. Now look, I know that for a lot of people watching this, the hardest step is actually the first one, not because it's complicated, but because starting means admitting that every year you've waited has cost you. And I don't say that to make you feel bad. I say it because the second best time to start is always today, not next month when you've done more research, not after the election settles, not when you feel more ready. Today. Because 10 years from now, you will not remember what was happening in the news this week, but you will absolutely remember whether or not you started. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the one thing that's been stopping you from getting started? I read every single comment and I want to know. If this video helped simplify something that's felt complicated for a while, hit the thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need to hear this. And I'll see you in the next one.